The new geopolitical architecture, navigating a multipolar world.
During a crucial moment of his second term in the White House. The historic gathering comes as the Iran war continues to impact global oil supplies and the transit of goods through the Strait of Hormuz. But top of mind for President Xi, Taiwan. I'm Olivia Gazis for CBS News, and these are the top 5 highlights from President Trump's trip to China. President Trump arrived in Beijing to a welcome ceremony with pomp and pageantry. On Thursday, before a closed-door session, President Trump praised President Xi and touted the tech leaders who accompanied him to China to encourage new partnerships between the two world superpowers.
I just want to say on behalf of all of the great delegation that we have the greatest businessmen, the biggest, and I guess the best in the world. We have amazing people, and they're all with me. Every single one of them, we asked the top 30 in the world, every single one of them said yes. And I didn't want the second or the third in the company. I wanted only the top. And they're here today to pay respects to you and to China. And they look forward to trade and doing business. And it's going to be totally reciprocal on our behalf.
Then a high-stakes, closed-door meeting that lasted over 2 hours. According to Chinese state media, Xi issued a stern warning about Taiwan, saying potential clashes and even conflicts could happen if the issue isn't handled properly. The White House called the meeting good. Here's more from CBS News' Weijia Jiang and Tony DeCopel.
We should be partners, not rivals.
There, they stress the importance of cooperation.
It's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to be your friend. And the relationship between China and the USA is going to be better than ever before.
The White House says both presidents agreed on the need for China to buy more U.S. agricultural products. Overnight, China approved export licenses for more than 400 American beef processing plants, according to customs data. For Xi, Taiwan is top of mind. China wants reunification. And for the U.S. to stop selling arms to the self-governing island. Chinese state media says Xi raised the issue today, warning differences could bring the U.S. and China into, quote, conflict. But Trump declined to say whether it was discussed.
Mr. President, did you talk about Taiwan?
And the White House did not mention Taiwan in the formal summary of their meeting. It did include the war in Iran, saying Xi agreed with Trump that the Strait of Hormuz must remain open and that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon.
Why does China care so much about Taiwan? They consider it to be part of mainland China. It splintered off in 1949 after the Chinese Civil War, and Beijing regards it as essentially a renegade province, not unlike an American state that's trying to secede. And they want America to stop selling arms to this, in essence, state that's trying to secede in their view. And that's why it is such a core issue for them. 1949 looms large. By 2049, the 100-year anniversary of the modern China, they hope that there will be reunification. What the people here hope, though, is very different, Errol. We spent some time today at a market, at the mall, and a subway station, talking to anyone who would talk to us about how they feel being Taiwanese so close to the Chinese mainland. And the general perspective is that there's nothing against China per se, but they don't want to be communist in any country. They have grown attached to their independence, to their freedoms, to the democracy that they have here, and that's really where they draw the line. They don't care what name you put on it. If you call them a country or a nation or an independent province, they're comfortable with the status quo, but they don't want to be gobbled up by their bigger neighbor.
Trump and Xi later visited the Temple of Heaven before members of the Chinese and American delegations attended a state banquet on Thursday. There, Xi and Trump toasted the relationship between the U.S. and China.
We had extremely positive and productive conversations and meetings today.
On Friday, Trump's second full day in Beijing, he met with Xi Jinping for tea and a walk around a centuries-old garden, where the two, according to President Trump, discussed the Strait of Hormuz and potential trade deals. Here's more from Weijia Jiang.
It was the final event for President Trump's two-day visit here, where Iran, Taiwan, and trade dominated the conversations. Trump said it was a successful meeting, and Xi called it a historic summit as Beijing gave Trump a lavish send-off. China rolled out the red carpet one last time for President Trump before he waved goodbye to his hosts and boarded Air Force One back to the U.S. Trump and Chinese President Xi Jinping capped off their final day together, walking around the historic Zongnanhe Garden.
Nice place.
But after a two-day display of diplomacy, it's still to be seen how much progress they made to resolve tension over several topics.
We've settled a lot of different problems that other people wouldn't have been able to settle.
Xi told Trump Taiwan was the most important issue in the U.S.-China relationship and warned mismanagement could have consequences.
He feels very strongly. I made no commitment either way.
Trump said China agreed to buy American oil, 200 Boeing jets, and soybeans.
The farmers are going to be very happy. They're going to be buying billions of dollars of soybeans.
President Trump has invited President Xi for a reciprocal visit in the U.S. in September. He's headed back to America, having apparently shored up his relationship with Xi, but his major flashpoints remain: Iran, Taiwan, the fate of China's political prisoners, and the details of major trade agreements all appear unresolved for now.
Welcome to The Real Shift. I'm your host, Ro, and all I ask of you is to roll with me. Now today, we are going into something that most people are not even asking about or concerned about. Everybody's concerned about what's going on now. But nobody is telling the world how do they move forward from this point on. And today, this presentation aims to do just that. Okay, welcome. We find ourselves at a critical juncture in modern history, a period defined by the shifting of tectonic plates in global power, economics, and security. For decades, the international order was defined by a specific set of rules and a clear hierarchy. Today, that hierarchy is being challenged, reimagined, and in some cases dismantled. At the center of this transformation is the relationship between the world's two largest economies, the United States and China. The recent engagement between President Donald Trump and President Xi Jinping represents more than just a diplomatic summit. It is a signaling event for the rest of the decade. To understand where we are going, we must first look at what is this meeting about? What does this meeting signifies? This is no longer a relationship defined by engagement. In the traditional sense, it is a relationship defined by managed competition. The takeaway from the Trump-Xi dialogue is mutual recognition that while their systems are fundamentally at odds, the cost of total decoupling or kinetic conflict is prohibitively high. For the United States, the strategy has shifted towards economic nationalism and the protection of critical supply chains. For China, the goal is strategic autonomy, reducing reliance on Western markets while expanding influence through the global South. The deal-making nature of the current U.S. administration suggests a world where geopolitical issues are treated as transactional. This moves us away from ideological alliances and toward a results-oriented foreign policy. This shift has profound implications for the rest of the world, particularly for Russia and Iran. For Moscow, the Trump-Xi dynamic is a double-edged sword. On one hand, a U.S. administration that prioritizes domestic interests over foreign interventions may offer Russia a pathway towards a negotiated settlement in Ukraine. The Kremlin is closely watching to see if the U.S. will reduce its commitment to NATO and European security, which would effectively grant Russia a sphere of influence it has long desired. However, the strengthening of the U.S.-China bilateral transactional relationship could leave Russia isolated. If Washington and Beijing find a common ground on trade or regional stability, Russia's role as China's junior partner becomes less of a strategic asset and more of a liability. Moscow's future now depends on whether it can maintain its relevance in a world where two super players might decide to settle matters over their heads. Then we look at Iran. Tehran finds itself in a much more precarious position. The maximum pressure campaign is likely to return with renewed vigor. The U.S. objective is clear: to neutralize Iran's regional proxies and prevent its nuclear escalation through economic strangulation. Unlike Russia, which has a vast landmass and a seat at the UN Security Council, Iran's leverage is primarily through regional instability. In the U.S. and China, if the U.S. and China reach an understanding on energy security, China may reduce its appetite for Iranian oil, stripping Tehran of its primary economic lifeline. For Iran, the next few years will be a test of survival versus reform. This brings us to the broader collective known as BRICS. What began as an acronym for emerging markets has evolved into a geopolitical bloc that seeks to provide an alternative to the G7. With the recent expansion of BRICS to include nations like Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and UAE, the group is no longer just an economic club. It is a global South Caucus. The takeaway for BRICS nation is that the unipolar world is officially over. They are moving towards de-dollarization, not because the dollar will disappear tomorrow, but because they want protection from U.S. sanctions and financial hegemony. They are building parallel systems for trade, messaging, and development. However, BRICS is not a monolith. The internal tensions between India and China, or the divergent economy goals of Brazil and Saudi Arabia, means this bloc will struggle to act as a unified military or political force. Instead, they will act as a hedging mechanism. This nation will no longer choose sides between Washington and Beijing. They will choose themselves, playing both sides to secure the best deals for their own development. So, where is this all headed? What happens next? First, we should expect a period of economic fragmentation. The era of hyper-globalization is being replaced by friendshoring and nearshoring. Trade will continue, but it will be segmented into high-trust networks. Technology, especially artificial intelligence and semiconductors, will become the new arms race. Second, we are likely to see the rise of a regional policeman as the United States becomes more selective about where it intervenes. Regional powers will step into the vacuum. This can lead to localized stability, but it also increases the risk of regional wars as traditional deterrent fade. Third, the green transition will become a geopolitical weapon. The race for rare earth minerals and battery technology will define the new great game. China currently holds the leads in the supply chain, and the Western response to the monopoly will dictate trade policy for the next 20 years. In conclusion, the global situation is one of managed volatility, meaning the meeting between Trump and Xi suggests that while the competition is fierce, there is a desire to prevent a global hard landing. For Russia and Iran, the path is one of increasing pressure and the need for strategic pivots. For BRICS nations, the path is one of opportunity, growth, and the construction of an alternative global infrastructure. The world of tomorrow will not be governed by a single superpower or a single set of values. It will be a world of shifting alliances, transactional diplomacy, and a constant search for equilibrium in an age of uncertainty. The challenge for leaders, businesses, and citizens alike will be to remain agile. In this new era, the only constant is change, and the only strategy is adaptability. Thank you for your time, and once again, please like, subscribe, and share this content if you find it helpful. And once again, this is The Real Shift. I'm Ro for The Real Shift, asking you to, once again, roll with me. Y'all have a good night, and I appreciate your time. Thank you.